Hey, what's up? This is Chosen, and in this video we're going to be talking about the second iteration of the community polling that I did and tracked here for how the community is feeling about the strength of the different civilizations in the game. So I'm just going to be kind of walking you through that and talking about it and giving a little bit of context to this. So let's get into it. Alrighty, so obviously with Age of Empires 4 being a relatively new game, we've only basically had it live in November and December, so I've only had an opportunity to do this twice, but what we can see is a few interesting things here going on when you talk about the community perception of different civilizations in the second iteration of the tier list here. What I do is I let people rate each civilization on a scale of 1 to 10, and then I just chart the data based on the average response for each civilization and for every person going through and kind of rating them 1 through 10. And some of the things that jump off the board here are that obviously the number one civilization, everybody thought French was super overpowered when the game first came out, but in the second tier list here, the Mongols actually are even viewed as more OP than the French were before. Now Mongols are a very tough civilization to play well. I think the Mongols and the Rus probably have the highest potential to really dominate if somebody is super fast and they're very good at managing many different things and playing a hyper play style. And it looks like that's reflected in the highest levels of gameplay, where the Mongols really feel extremely oppressive, and people are viewing them even more oppressive than the French were in the first iteration of Age of Empires, and people thought French were broken OP. And then we also see that the top four and the bottom four stayed exactly the same. You've got French, Rus, Mongols, English, and that stayed the same in the second time. And then you add Holy Roman, Abbasid, Chinese, and Delhi as the bottom four, and that did not change. But some of the orders shuffled around a little bit, and what we can see is that a lot of civilizations kind of rose up to close the gap of the number one. You can see that next tier after the Mongols, where you've got French, English, Rus, and Chinese. They're all sitting there as viewed as pretty strong and in a good place. Now, I think where I would disagree, so this is not my rankings, this is the community. Now, if I were going to do it, I would probably, number one for me is probably a tie between Mongols and the Rus. I think, you know, if you've got a player with 300, 400 APM and they're playing 12 hours a day and they're playing almost perfectly with insane game sense and reaction time and speed and dexterity and experience, I think the strongest civilization for them is going to either be Mongols or Rus, and it depends on the map. And then after that, in third place, I would probably have the Chinese and the French tied. Now, the Chinese are extremely strong if you leave them unharassed, if you just let them build and be comfortable and do their thing and get to that 15-20 minute mark. They're going to be rolling with their clock tower siege that has more HP than your siege, and they can supervise it and produce it super fast. They are going to be extremely oppressive when played well and left unharassed. The French, I think, are more consistent. They're strong early game, strong middle game, and strong end game, and they're just very kind of like basic. Like it's a lot more likely you're going to play French to their fullest potential than it is that you're going to play the Chinese to their fullest potential, is kind of what I'm trying to say. So in that next tier, I would personally have the French and the Chinese, and then after that, you know, the Abbasid and the Holy Roman, they can both be strong on the right map and the right circumstance, obviously, but they, you know, it's hard to get consistent value out of them. And then the Delhi was extremely confusing. They kind of had one play style that was super cool and unique for them, but the developers said that they don't want anybody to feel like they have to play a certain way with a civilization, so they kind of nerfed that into the ground, which doesn't really make sense because every civilization has that. Like English, you have to build longbows. That's just kind of what you have to do because your best landmark is the council hall, and your council hall smashes out superior archers that are called longbows. So you really don't have a choice. You have to do that. The French, they're by far their best landmark on 90-something% of maps is the school of cavalry. You get that, you basically have to build knights because you get knights early, and you have to build the school of cavalry. So almost every civilization has this. The Chinese, their clock tower siege is just incredible, so you have to build it because siege is awesome. And the Chinese clock tower siege is even better. So, I mean, you could say that about every civ. So the nerf to Delhi is a little bit confusing to me, and I don't really get the thought process there because every civilization, like I said, has kind of that A to B to C thought process and how they're going to play given the map that you're playing on. But it is also worth noting as a side point here that you know, in order, tier lists are never perfect. It's never going to be right. There's always going to be arguments, no matter who you ask, no matter how you do it. And you know, you almost got to do like a 1v1 pro meta, and then you got to do like a casual player tier list, because it's going to be very different. Like for your casual player who just plays a couple games a week and they're not super try hard, the Mongols and the Rus probably are not very good for them. You know, that player is probably going to want to play somebody like the French or the English. But if you got the pros that are playing 8-10 hours a day and they're god tier players, then they're probably going to want to play someone like the Mongols or the Rus, because they can manage everything that it takes to really get the value out of them as a civilization and play them to their max potential. So it really depends on you as a player, and it depends on the ELO and the skill of how the tier list is going to relate to kind of what is going to be strong mostly and what's going to be weak. But the reason something like this is interesting is because you get the community, you get people at all sorts of different ranks rating the civilizations. You get people that are pretty high ranked, you get people that are mid ranked, and you get people that are casual and low ranked, and then you squash it all into one number, and it spits out exactly what the community is kind of feeling about the different civilizations. And I think they were mostly on point. I would definitely move Rus and Chinese up, like I said. So let me just give you my 1 through 8 here in closing. I'll give you my personal 1 through 8 for like not necessarily pro, but like a high ELO. I would probably put Rus number 1 if I had to, because they got the mobility and the strength of the Mongols, but yet they have amazing siege and they can still build walls and everything, so they can play defensively too if they want. The high trade house is a ridiculous landmark that enables them to go fast castle or double town center without even needing to get to gather stone. So they've just got so much freedom and they can do every playstyle. They're awesome on water maps because they can just go ahead and switch their fishing boats to military. So there's really no situation that they're ever weak. If you're playing on a super open map, they can go with horse archers, lots of scouts, steel hunts. If you're playing on a closed map, they can go fast castle with superior trade, superior income, and then they're awesome siege late game and play that way. So I think in the hands of a god tier player, that Rus would be number 1 for me. And then after that, I would put Mongols at number 2. 3, honestly, I would put Chinese. They're just so insane late game that how can you not put them there? And then their Barbican allows them to play defensively early game and fill that gap. So 1, 2, 3 would be Rus, Mongol, Chinese. 4th, it starts to get tough. I think there's a big drop off after those 3. Gosh, 4th, I'm leaning either French or English, and you know, I would probably go French because on any sort of water map, French having that early Hulk is still pretty good. So that would be the tiebreaker for me. So 4th, I would go French. Then 5th, I would go English. 6th, I would probably go really close again between Abbasid and Holy Roman. I would probably personally go Holy Roman, actually. And then at 7th, I would go Abbasid. And then 8th, I would go Delhi. But yeah, just a quick look into some research I was doing to figure out how the community is viewing different civilizations. And sorry, the uploads haven't been super consistent. I've just been super busy with the holiday season and then running my other channels and other obligations to get content. But I want to at least upload a few videos a week here and keep you in the loop on how I'm feeling about AoE 4. And that'll do it for this one. So as always, thank you for watching. Have a good rest of your day. Peace.